The night Warri began to change. The moon glared down like a judging eye, bathing the kingdom in silver dread. Whispers rippled through the land as strange European ships haunted the horizon like ghosts searching for souls. Inside the royal palace, tension wrapped the air tightly, and the Olu of Warri knew destiny had finally come calling. The Portuguese envoy had returned, not with friendly trade but with promises dipped in danger. They offered guns that roared like thunder and could silence enemies forever. But the price demanded was Warri's wealth, loyalty, and slow surrender of identity. Chiefs argued bitterly, some desperate for power, others terrified of losing their soul to foreign greed. If you love powerful African royal stories filled with betrayal, destiny, courage, and cultural pride, stay with this series. Like, comment where you're watching from, and share so more people can experience this legendary Warri story. Outside the palace, the people gathered like restless waves against rocks. Mothers tightened their arms around their children. Warriors sharpened spears worn by ancestral hands, and elders whispered prayers to the spirits. They feared not the foreign guns yet, but the storm already building inside Warri's heart. The Olu stood above them all, his royal robes heavy, but his fear heavier. He remembered the prophecy spoken when he was still a prince, that a day would come when Warri must choose between power that destroys and humility that preserves. Now that prophecy stood before him wearing foreign boots and carrying deadly promises. The council fractured. Some urged the king to embrace European power, calling it the future. Others demanded loyalty to the gods, the land, and the sacred ways that shaped Warri's strength. Every word spoken did not calm the kingdom, it fractured it further. As dawn crept over the palace walls, the Olu closed his eyes and whispered to his ancestors. Whatever choice he made, Warri would never remain the same again. The first crack in unity had formed, and destiny had only just begun sharpening its blade. The great council hall of Warri glowed beneath torchlight, yet the warmth failed to reach anyone's spirit. Chiefs sat in a wide circle, their faces carved with worry and pride, their breaths heavy with unspoken fear. The Olu of Warri sat at the center, watching loyalty and ambition silently wrestle across the room. Chief Ikenowo rose first, his voice deep and demanding like crashing waves. He argued that Warri must embrace European power, claiming the world was changing and only those with guns would survive. He spoke of dominance, control, and a Warri feared by enemies across waters and land alike. Chief Oderegbe stood in fierce opposition, his words carrying the weight of ancestors. He warned that guns came with chains, treaties came with traps, and friendship from foreigners often came tied to submission. The council murmured uneasily as loyalty to tradition clashed with hunger for power. Tension thickened as accusations flew like arrows. Some chiefs whispered that those rejecting European weapons feared losing their influence. Others claimed the supporters of foreign guns were selling Warri's identity piece by piece. Every word tore at unity, every heartbeat echoed danger. Outside, drums rolled in confused grief, as though Warri's spirit trembled. The night sky seemed to lean closer, listening, waiting, uneasy about which destiny would be chosen. The people sensed the storm even before decisions were made. The Olu remained silent, feeling every voice strike his heart like a hammer. He was king, yet powerless against the emotional war erupting in his own council room. His decision would build a future or destroy it beyond repair. When the council ended, no peace followed. Men left with clenched jaws, silent anger, and dangerous resolve. Warri was no longer a united kingdom, it had become a house split by prophecy and pride. At the shore of Warri River, European ships swayed like silent beasts waiting to be unleashed. Their flags fluttered proudly, their cannons rested like sleeping monsters hungry to roar. Curious eyes watched from the trees, the people unsure whether salvation or doom had arrived. The Portuguese commander, Don Valerio, stepped onto Warri soil with polished boots and a charming smile. His tongue carried honey, but his intentions hid like knives beneath silk. He spoke of friendship, prosperity, and progress, while his eyes measured Warri like prey. Guns were displayed like precious treasures, gleaming under sunlight like forbidden magic. Their cold metal seduced some chiefs instantly. Power hummed through their veins at the thought of holding dominance in their hands. Others looked upon the weapons with dread, sensing only death. Don Valerio promised alliances, protection, and trade wealth beyond imagination, but he also demanded exclusive control of trade routes, taxes, and deep involvement in Warri politics. To accept meant power in exchange for slow surrender of sovereignty. Word spread across Warri like wildfire. Some celebrated, praising the Olu's opportunity. Others wept quietly, fearing their culture, gods, and pride would soon bow to strange men from the sea. Homes whispered at night, and sleep abandoned many hearts. Meanwhile, the Olu watched silently from afar, torn between duty and destiny. Power called to him, but so did the spirits of his ancestors. His crown felt heavier than ever. By sunset, Warri no longer felt like home. It felt like a kingdom standing on a thin rope between glory and destruction. And far away, destiny smiled, because whichever choice he made, Warri would pay.
The first true fracture appeared not in the palace, but among the people. Market squares buzzed louder than ever, not with laughter, but with fearful debate. Some prayed for guns, others prayed against them. Warri's unity had shattered into anxious opinions. Young warriors admired the foreign weapons with dangerous excitement. They dreamed of unmatched strength, of enemies bowing, of Warri becoming untouchable. Elders watched them sadly, remembering that every promise of power demanded a sacrifice. Priests gathered in sacred silence, seeking answers from the spirits. They saw visions filled with smoke, chains, divided brothers, and rivers stained with sorrow. The gods did not speak of victory. They spoke of warning, and warnings rarely came without reason. Inside the palace, wives of chiefs cried quietly at night. They could already feel something sacred tearing apart. Warri had always fought enemies outside, never imagined war might grow in its own chest. The Olu paced his throne room, his footsteps echoing like thunder. Advisors surrounded him, voices clashing like swords, pushing him toward decisions his soul had not accepted. Every word pulled him further from peace. Trust began to fade like light swallowed by dusk. Men no longer looked at each other with brotherhood, but with suspicion. Smiles felt thinner. Loyalty began to weaken. Warri was still whole on the map, but in spirit, the kingdom had already begun to split. The day of decision drew nearer, and tension wrapped Warri like iron chains. The air itself felt heavy, as if the kingdom struggled to breathe beneath destiny's weight. Everyone waited for the king's voice, but silence ruled instead. Inside the palace, debates exploded into anger. Chiefs who once called each other brothers now glared like rivals preparing for war. Loyalty shifted like restless wind, unpredictable and dangerous. The Olu felt isolated upon his throne. The crown that once symbolized certainty now represented burden. Every possible choice ended in blood, either spilled on battlefield ground or upon Warri's cultural soul. Don Valerio returned again, smiling like a serpent cloaked in politeness. He reminded the king that time was moving and hesitation was weakness. Every word was pressure, every promise carried poison. The queen watched her husband crumble under invisible weight. She loved him, but feared his pride. She feared the future even more. For the first time, royalty felt powerless. As night swallowed Warri again, the kingdom stood at the edge of a cliff with no clear ground ahead. One step wrong, and Warri would fall into chaos beyond repair. And deep within the Olu's heart, a dangerous thought whispered, what if guns truly are the only way to survive? Night crept softly over Warri, but peace did not follow it. Instead, whispers glided through shadows like restless spirits a week before dawn. Men gathered secretly under moonlight, choosing sides with trembling conviction. Some swore loyalty to the Olu no matter his choice, willing to bleed for the throne. Others pledged themselves to tradition, shouting that no king had the right to sell the soul of their kingdom to strangers. These were not enemies from outside, these were brothers now quietly preparing for war. The elders felt the land change beneath their feet. Ground that once symbolized stability now trembled with coming chaos. Even the river wind no longer sang peacefully, it howled like a creature sensing danger. The palace guarded silence carefully, but danger always finds cracks. Servants overheard dangerous vows. Messengers disappeared mysteriously. Trust dissolved faster than morning dew. The Olu sat awake, watching the flickering flame before him. Every flicker felt like a heartbeat of the kingdom, shaking, frightened, calling for rescue he wasn't sure he could give. He wished leadership came with certainty instead of choices that bled. The queen watched him quietly, tears trapped behind dignity. She feared not only for Warri but for the man she loved, slowly drowning beneath duty. She prayed, but even heaven seemed to hesitate. Warri did not explode in war that night, but something worse happened. Hope faded. The priests gathered in the sacred grove, their white cloth trembling softly under restless wind. Incense curled into the sky like desperate prayers begging for mercy. This was not ceremony, this was alarm. They cast kola nuts, read sacred markings and waited. The earth replied with anger instead of blessing. The spirit spoke once more, not gently, not softly, like thunder reminding a child that fire burns when touched. The message was cruelly clear. If Warri chose guns, war would devour families. If Warri rejected guns, enemies within would rise. Either way, blood would be spilled. The chief priest wept quietly, his tears falling upon sacred sand. He had never seen fate so unforgiving. Warri was standing inside a burning circle with no exit.
He approached the Olu with trembling sorrow. "Your Majesty," he whispered, "there is no future where Warri remains untouched, but the choice you make will decide who suffers most, the kingdom or the throne." The Olu felt the words slice deeply. He was king, protector, father of the land, yet fate offered him pain in every direction. Leadership now felt like execution by choice. He dismissed the priest with gratitude, but when he was alone, his shoulders collapsed. For the first time, the mighty king looked less like a ruler and more like a man trapped by destiny. The first sword was drawn not on a battlefield, but in the streets of Warri itself. Two men argued over loyalty, words flaring into fists, fists shifting into blades. One fell, blood touched Warri soil. The shock did not unite the people, it divided them even more. One camp claimed honor, demanded violence. Now, the other shouted that killing brothers meant Warri was already dead. Families turned on families, friends avoided each other. Streets that once echoed laughter now trembled beneath tension. Children hid behind their mothers as fear grew like wildfire. The palace could no longer pretend control. Reports poured in like storms, assaults, broken alliances, silent burnings no one claimed responsibility for. War wasn't coming. War had already stepped inside Warri's house. The Olu summoned the council urgently. Some arrived angry, others came quietly smiling with dangerous confidence. No one entered as a brother anymore. Every step in the hall felt like stepping across cracks. He begged for unity, for reason, for patience, but words no longer held value. Pride screamed louder than wisdom. And somewhere unseen, hands rubbed together in satisfaction. Chaos had begun.
Don Valerio returned as Warri trembled, and his timing felt too perfect to be coincidence. He walked through the palace smiling softly, like a doctor visiting a dying patient with medicine only he possessed. Except his medicine demanded a soul. He offered sympathy sweetly. He spoke in calm tones, promising order, strength, and stability, but only if Warri truly accepted European partnership fully. Not halfway, not hesitantly, completely. The Olu listened with a face carved from stone, but inside, storms crashed violently. The temptation was poison wrapped in opportunity. Accepting guns meant order, but at a price too large to measure.
Chief Aikenwa urged acceptance passionately. "Let us secure control," he insisted. "If Warri breaks, you will be king of ruins, not a kingdom." His voice carried fear disguised as confidence. Chief Oderegbe rose in fury. "Better ruins we own," he thundered, "than a decorated cage the strangers own for us." Sparks flew in the council room again. War now had voice, breath, heartbeat. The queen watched with heartbreak. She could no longer tell whether passion meant loyalty or madness. Every speech felt like war drums. The Olu dismissed everyone in exhaustion. Alone once more, he stared at the throne. Power had never felt so painful. He realized something dark and undeniable. No matter which future he chose, someone would call him a destroyer. Warri woke one morning to silence. Not peaceful silence, but the silence of a kingdom holding its breath in fear. Camps had now formed openly, banners raised, alliances declared. Brothers wore colors to show which future they believed in. One future demanded guns. One future demanded tradition. Neither future offered peace. Warriors began training in hidden fields. Drums rolled quietly, not in celebration, but preparation. Mothers packed belongings secretly. Some began planning escape paths. They did not trust tomorrow anymore. The palace strengthened its guards. Even trust inside the royal compound weakened. Servants feared speaking. Guards watched each other suspiciously. Betrayal now felt predictable. The Olu gathered his royal household. His son stood tall but uncertain. His elders bowed stiffly, their loyalty strained. His queen held his hand, feeling his spirit shaking beneath royal strength. He wished leadership meant strength only, but leadership also meant pain and sacrifice. By sunset, Warri no longer felt like one kingdom. It felt like two storms growing toward collision, and destiny simply waited. The Olu stood before the sacred mirror used only by kings in moments of great crisis. His own reflection looked back at him, but it felt like he was staring at a stranger wearing his face. Power had carved exhaustion into him. He whispered into the silence, asking ancestors for guidance. No voice answered, only the crackle of distant torches and the faint cry of a restless city filled his ears. He realized something painful. Kings are often the loneliest people alive. Everyone stands around them, yet no one truly stands with them. Their choices are theirs alone, and so are the consequences. Outside, the city pulsed with fear like a living heart, unsure whether it would survive the night. Rumors traveled faster than wind, faster than drumming messages. Some said the king had already sold Warri. Others said he would rather die than bend. The queen entered quietly, touching his shoulder. She did not speak. Her silence was deeper than words. It carried love, pleading, fear, and acceptance of whatever future he chose. He almost broke then, not as a king, as a man. But kings are not allowed to break. He straightened his back, hiding his pain behind the face of the Olu. At dawn, he would decide. The meeting took place on the riverbank, where Warri's waters kissed the European ships. Cannons loomed like sleeping beasts, silent but threatening.
Flags fluttered above masts, symbols of power far from home, yet already claiming space. Don Valerio greeted the Olu warmly, bowing with exaggerated respect. His smile was soft, practiced, polished by years of negotiation that left nations bleeding but smiling. He laid out crates and opened them slowly. Guns gleamed beneath cloth, cold and patient. They looked like destiny cast in iron. Protection, Valerio said calmly. Control, stability. Warri can stand above all neighboring lands. All it costs is agreement and partnership. The Olu touched the metal cautiously. It felt heavier than stone, not in weight, but in meaning. This was not simply a weapon. It was a road that did not allow travelers to return. Behind him, loyal chiefs stood proudly supportive. Across from them, traditionalists watched with horror, feeling ancestors scream across the wind. The river moved gently, but it carried tension like a buried current. A bargain was forming, and Warri held its breath. News of the negotiations spread before the king even returned. It raced through marketplaces, fishing boats, shrines, and warrior camps like lightning jumping from tree to tree. No one stayed indifferent.
Two sides became clearer than ever. Those who supported the bargain claimed survival demanded change. They shouted that the world was different now and ancestors would forgive adaptation. They saw guns as shields, not chains. Those against it swore the soul of Warri was not for trade. They believed the ancestors did not bless foreign fire. To them, losing tradition meant losing themselves entirely. Arguments turned into brawls. Brawls turned into deaths. The kingdom bled from wounds it inflicted upon itself. Children learned to hide when voices rose. The queen wept quietly when she heard the reports. Not for politics, she wept because families were breaking apart. Warri's greatest wound was not foreign invasion, it was its own people's hearts turning sharp. The Olu knew the truth then. Whatever he chose, Warri would not walk out of this unchanged. The civil war did not begin with an announcement. It began with the king's own blood. Prince Oromote, younger brother of the Olu, stepped forward as the leader of the traditionalist faction. He did not seek foreign guns, nor did he seek the throne at first. He sought to protect the old ways. But people pushed him higher. Desperation crowns rebels without asking their consent. He declared openly that the king had strayed from the path of the ancestors. He called for resistance not out of hatred, but out of belief. Still, resistance sharpened quickly into rebellion. The Olu heard the news in stunned silence. Betrayal hurts. Family betrayal destroys. He loved his brother once. Now destiny was forcing one of them to break the other. The chiefs urged decisive action. Crush him quickly, they said. Mercy now will burn the kingdom. Yet the king hesitated, not because of weakness, but because the rebellion wore his brother's face. Warri split cleanly in two. The first official battle burst like a storm the sky could no longer hold back. War cries shattered the calm, drums roared, horns screamed, sandals thudded against earth in furious rhythm. Warriors clashed beneath palm trees and in village squares. Smoke spiraled upward, houses burned. The river reflected flames instead of stars. Brother fought brother. Friends faced each other as enemies for the first time. Some hesitated and died. Others attacked with tears streaming down their faces. The Olu commanded with heavy heart, trapped between duty and grief. His brother led the opposing side fiercely, spirit blazing with conviction. Neither wanted to kill the other, yet both commanded soldiers who would. By nightfall, the land was scarred. Cries echoed across darkness.
Warri had finally crossed the line it could not uncross. And somewhere in the distance, Europeans simply watched, waiting, because chaos makes bargaining cheaper. The wind carried whispers of war through Warri as rumors of betrayal spread faster than truth. Some believed the Olu had doomed them, others claimed he had saved them. In the marketplace, mothers clutched their children tighter, sensing a darkness drawing closer to the heart of the kingdom. Council members could no longer hide their divided loyalty. Secret meetings happened in shadows, while sworn allies exchanged suspicious glances. The palace walls felt thinner now, as if danger could pass straight through them. Efeoluwa gathered the youth warriors and demanded discipline, not rage. He reminded them that fear makes men foolish, and foolish men destroy kingdoms. His words steadied their shaking spirits, but uncertainty still lived in their eyes. Prince Omason, fueled by pride and bitterness, began recruiting his own followers. Promises of glory filled his lips, though his heart carried insecurity. He no longer wanted to protect Warri. He wanted to rule it. The Olu stood on his balcony, watching smoke rise from distant camps preparing for conflict. His soul felt like a battlefield between duty and regret. For the first time, he wondered if destiny had already made its decision without him. Priests at the shrine of the ancestors warned that Warri stood at a spiritual crossroads. If blood spilled unjustly, the land itself would rebel. But if justice was guided by humility, the kingdom might still breathe again.
Night fell heavy and restless, like the sky itself feared what morning would bring. Thunder rumbled in the distance, not from the clouds, but from the footsteps of approaching fate. Warri awakened to the sound of drums, not of celebration, but of impending battle. Camps formed across the kingdom, one loyal to the Olu, the other to Prince Omaso. Brothers, friends, and families suddenly found themselves standing on opposite sides of destiny. Prince Omaso stood before his men with fiery resolve. He declared his father weak, his decisions reckless, and his rule expired. His voice was strong, but his spirit trembled with wounded pride beneath it. Meanwhile, the Olu assembled his council and remaining loyal warriors. He did not speak of power or anger. Instead, he spoke of legacy, unity, and the blood that bound them together as one people. Those words gave his followers strength. Efeoluwa looked upon the divided kingdom and felt a sting of sorrow. This was not the Warri he had fought to defend. This was a kingdom turning its sword upon itself, guided by ego and fear instead of wisdom. The European merchants watched the tension with interest, knowing chaos always benefited outsiders. They whispered carefully crafted lies into Omason's camp, feeding his ambition like firewood to a growing blaze. In the shrines, sacrifices were made, prayers were said, and drums of warning continued to beat. The ancestors heard the cries of Warri, but the decision now rested in human hands. The sky dimmed early that evening, as if the sun itself refused to witness what was coming. And deep in every heart, one question echoed: who truly deserved to rule Warri? Steel clashed against steel as Warri erupted into conflict. The sound of battle echoed through the forests, across rivers, and into trembling homes. Dust rose like spirits awakened, while cries of pain tore the air apart. Prince Omaso fought fiercely, determined to prove himself worthy of the throne. His followers believed in him, believing a younger king meant a rebirth for Warri. Their passion burnt dangerously bright. The Olu's warriors, however, fought with loyalty, not ambition. They fought not for personal gain, but to preserve the soul of their kingdom. Efeoluwa led them with courage, ensuring no unnecessary blood was shed.
Yet war has no favorites. Men fell on both sides. Friends struck friends. Innocent lives trembled as the land was stained with grief. Victory no longer felt glorious. It felt heavy. In the midst of battle, father and son finally stood face to face, no longer king and prince, but two men torn apart by pride and hurt. Their eyes held memories of love, laughter, and now betrayal.
The fight between them was swift, powerful, and heartbreaking. Omason's anger pushed him hard, but the Olu's resolve was deeper. In the end, Omason fell, not dead, but defeated, his pride shattered more deeply than his body. Silence followed, not the silence of peace, but the silence of shock. Warri had won nothing. Instead, it had lost a part of itself. The battlefield lay quiet, scattered with wounded pride and broken spirits. Women rushed to find their husbands, brothers, and sons, tears washing dust stained with blood. Children watched, learning too early the price of division. The Olu walked among the fallen, not as a ruler, but as a grieving father of his nation. He helped lift the wounded, comforted the crying, and bowed in respect to those who would never rise again. His heart carried their weight. Prince Omason lay weak, staring at the sky as realization crushed his chest heavier than any wound. His ambition had nearly destroyed everything he loved. Shame wrapped around him like chains. Ifeoluwa knelt beside him, not as an enemy, but as a brother in spirit. War does not prove strength, he said softly. Wisdom does. And for the first time, Omason listened. The priests declared purification rites were needed. The land itself needed healing. Warri's spirit was wounded, and only humility could mend it. Pride had taken too much already. The people gathered at the great square, their faces weary but hopeful. They were tired of fear, tired of division, tired of bleeding for the pride of powerful men. As the sun set, a quiet vow spread across Warri. Never again would ambition be allowed to tear them apart. Something new had to be born from this pain. The Olu stood before his people, no longer a distant king but a humbled leader. His voice carried sorrow, responsibility, and renewed strength. He admitted his mistakes openly, something rare for a ruler. He declared that Warri would no longer trade its soul for power. No decision would again be made without the counsel of both elders and common people. The kingdom would stand together or not at all. Prince Omason, still weak, faced the people as well. With tears in his eyes, he apologized for his rebellion. His pride finally broke, replaced by genuine remorse. This moment hurt him, but it also freed him. The people forgave, not because they forgot, but because Warri needed unity to survive. The kingdom could not heal with anger still burning inside it. And slowly, something sacred began to repair. Ifeoluwa was praised as the invisible backbone of Warri's strength. His loyalty remained unshaken through storm and fire. Many silently believed he carried the spirit of the ancestors within him. The shrines were cleansed. The drums beat softly again, not for war, but for renewal. The land felt lighter, as if exhaling after holding breath for too long. Yet destiny had not finished with Warri. This peace was a blessing, but also a fragile one. And somewhere beyond the sea, eyes still watched the kingdom with interest. Peace slowly settled over Warri, but peace is never silent. It whispered gently through rebuilt streets and rested softly in the hearts of tired people. Yet far beyond the coastline, new storms quietly gathered. European merchants returned with new offers cloaked in smiles. They spoke of partnership, progress, and development.
But behind every promise was hunger. Hunger for control, hunger for Warri's strength. The Olu listened, wiser now, scarred but strengthened by experience. He no longer heard only their words, he heard the intentions beneath them. Warri would not fall again for honey-coated chains. Prince Omasan watched too, quieter than before. War had humbled him, pain had reshaped him, and guilt had taught him respect. He stood beside his father now, not as a rival, but as a student of destiny. Efeoluwa warned the council that true wars are not always fought with swords. Some wars arrive smiling, dressed in silk and gold, carrying contracts sharper than spears. The council nodded, finally understanding. The priests prayed for wisdom stronger than greed. They prayed that no leader would love power more than people again. The drums were softer now, but their message was powerful. Remember. And so Warri stood at the edge of a new chapter, cautious yet unbroken, wiser yet still proud. The kingdom had bled too much to ever walk blindly again. The Olu gathered the elders, warriors, traders, and priests beneath the sacred Iroko tree. This was no ordinary meeting. It was the shaping of Warri's future. No decision from this day would belong to one man alone. He declared a new covenant between the throne and the people. Power would be shared. Wisdom would be collective. Leadership would no longer be a crown worn by ego, but a burden carried with honor. The people listened, astonished and deeply moved. A king willing to reduce his own power was rare. A king willing to learn from failure was even rarer.
Prince Omasan stepped forward and knelt publicly before his father. "I once fought you," he said, voice steady but emotional. "Now I fight for you and for Warri." The crowd murmured with relief and respect. Efeoluwa was officially named Guardian of Warri, the protector not just of the throne, but of truth and justice. His loyalty had become legend. His courage had become a standard. The shrines were blessed again, symbolizing a healed bond between leaders and ancestors. The land seemed to breathe easier. Even the wind felt warmer, as if Warri itself approved. For the first time in a long time, peace did not feel borrowed. It felt earned. Warri began to rise again, not with noise, but with purpose. Markets flourished. Fishermen returned proudly with full nets. Children laughed freely again, playing where fear once lived. The people worked not for a king, but with a king. Roads were repaired, farms expanded, knowledge was shared among young warriors and scholars alike. Warri rediscovered its identity. European traders returned, shocked by the unity they found. Warri was no longer desperate, no longer begging, no longer impressed by empty gifts wrapped in foreign ribbons. The Olu dealt with them carefully. He welcomed trade but not exploitation, friendship but not domination, respect but not submission, and for the first time, Europeans realized Warri was no easy prey. Prince Omasan became a bridge between old tradition and new vision. He listened more than he spoke, and when he spoke with thought. He was no longer the storm, he was becoming the sunrise. Efeoluwa trained young warriors not just in battle, but in discipline and wisdom. A sword is nothing, he told them, if the heart behind it is foolish. The kingdom grew stronger, not because of riches or guns, but because its spirit healed. But destiny never leaves a great leader untested forever. A mysterious sickness spread through parts of Warri, striking fear once more into the hearts of the people. Panic rattled communities like wind shaking fragile leaves. Some whispered that it was a curse from ancestors still angry. Others claimed Europeans brought it. Fear tried to divide Warri again like an old enemy returning from the dark. The Olu did not hide, he did not blame, he did not run, he acted. He sent healers, opened palace stores, supported households, and ensured no family suffered alone. Leadership became compassion. Prince Omasan organized volunteers to deliver food and medicine. He worked side by side with common men. The people saw him not as a prince, but as one of them. Respect replaced old resentment. Efeolua guarded order, preventing chaos, protecting communities, and ensuring no one exploited the crisis. Warri refused to let fear become another silent war. Slowly, the sickness weakened. Hope returned. Songs of gratitude replaced cries of fear. Warri had survived yet another trial, not by power, not by violence, but by unity. And in that moment, the Olu realized something profound. His greatest victory was not ruling Warri, it was teaching Warri to stand as one. Years later, elders told the story of the Olu who faced destiny to children gathered beneath the moonlight. They spoke of pride, war, betrayal, healing, and rebirth. They spoke of scars that became strength. They spoke of a king who nearly lost everything but chose wisdom over ego. A prince who nearly destroyed his home but chose humility instead. A warrior who protected truth more fiercely than any throne. Warri remained strong, not because it avoided storms, but because it survived them. The kingdom learned that true power is not in wealth or weapons, but in unity, compassion, and courage. The European ships still sailed, the world still changed, but Warri did not bow. It adapted without surrendering its soul. It walked forward without abandoning its roots. The Olu grew older, but his spirit never faded. He watched a kingdom flourish not under fear, but under shared strength, and that was his true reward. The drums of Warri beat proudly again, not as warnings, not as cries, but as songs of a people who faced destiny and chose to rise. And so the legacy of Warri lived on, etched in history, guarded by memory, and carried forever in the hearts of its people. If you followed this powerful journey, tell me where you're watching from: Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, South Africa, UK, US? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share so more people can experience these deep African stories filled with lessons, culture, and heart.